How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Hardware Overload and my look at the new Gigabyte AORUS B850 ELITE Wi-Fi 7. So we do know it's a Wi-Fi 7 board, at least with the name. Alright, so this is, of course, more of the affordable boards for the new Ryzen 9000 CPUs. So you don't have to go for the super high end to actually have a more mid-range system or budget system. So now, even though AORUS isn't necessarily the budget systems, it's still not too expensive at around $230 or 6,000 Rand for here in South Africa. Now comparing that towards a CPU, something like the 9800 X3D, which I think this will be perfect for, that one is going for $480 or 12,500 Rand, so about double the board's price. And I usually think that's a nice sweet spot where you don't pay the same amount for the motherboard and for the CPU, because sometimes that is the case. So let's quickly open it up and see what we get. Now, of course, we have our board here on its own. Then we have our Wi-Fi antenna, which uses a different plug, which we'll go over. We have our two SATA cables. We have a front panel connector, manual, another manual thingy, and then an AORUS badge. So if you want to stick that on your case, So yeah, actually not too much going on inner side of the packaging, but now it's time for our board. So you currently actually get somewhat two options for this board. So this is the black normal AORUS board. Sorry, you can probably hear all the cows outside mooing, so forget about them, we're focusing on the board here. Okay, so you got the black board, but you also have the white ice option. So they look pretty much exactly the same, except it's a white instead of a black. So you do have the option of putting in your white system. I have one over there, and I'm sure that board would look awesome inside a system. But anyway, we have our black one here. And now, starting off with our CPU, we do have our AM5 socket here, where the pins are on the board now and not on the CPU. So you can rather just get a new board than a CPU if you paint some of the pins. But now with the AM5 platform, it supports the 9000 series, 8000 series, and the 7000 series, although the 8000 series are more of your APUs, your G8000 and everything. So if you have a previous 7000 series CPU, you can actually still use it with this board. But I would say, of course, just go for the 9000. And the nice thing about the B-range boards from AMD, they're all usually so packed with all of the features that you don't necessarily need to go for some of the X-range boards. They pretty much delivers everything that you really need. So even if you want to overclock or get a high-end CPU, you can still do that. So I do think if you pair it up with something like the 9800 X3D, that's going to be a perfect fit. You can even go up to like the 9950X. That's a bit of pushing it. We'll go over why. But even for the new one that was announced, the 9900 X3D, that's also an option for you. And thanks to Precision Boost Overdrive, that's going to handle all of your overclocking and everything, so you don't really need to do anything these days anymore. So you do have X3D Turbo mode, which you can enable inside the BIOS, which allows, I'm not sure how far this really goes, but it allows a non-X3D CPUs to reach similar speeds as X3D CPUs. But you also have a AORUS's AI Snatch and also a Hypertune BIOS. So the AI Snatch does all of the overclocking for your CPU and then also for your memory with just a single click. And apparently it can boost performance up to 20%. Now, usually I don't think it's going to go that high, but with all of the previous systems that I took a look at, their AI overclocking, just the single click a button overclocking, usually does a pretty good job of handling all of the voltages and also the thermal headroom and everything to actually get a nice boost in performance, again, without you needing to do anything. And combining that with Precision Boost Overdrive, that's also a nice combination. You do also have their Hypertune BIOS, which optimizes your memory then. So you do have all of your overclocking handled with that. Now, speaking of overclocking, for that, we will need to have a decent VRM setup here, which does look to be the case, especially with our blue thermal pads. Not sure why they went with blue and not like a gray or black, but anyway, so we do have a 14+2+2 power stages of your setup here. So that is actually pretty nice. So if you want to, again, pair it up with a higher end CPU, you can. It's going to handle all of the overclocking, but just go check out the temps to make sure. You can go do that with WH info. That's going to check all of your temperature for that. Now moving on towards our memory, we do have a 4 DDR5 DIMM slots that goes up to 256 gigs, so 4 64 gig slots, and it does go up to 8,200 mega transfers per second, so pretty quick. Now before getting your memory, just make sure that it actually is supported, so you can go check out on Gigabyte's website their supported memory list. Just make sure about that. Sometimes your memory can still work even though it's not on the list, but rather just be safe than sorry and just check, so you make sure that you're going to get the max performance out of your memory. Now you do also have your XPO, which are going to overclock your memory, and then also the Hyper Tune, which we talked about. So you do have all of that. Just to remind you guys that I have multiple channels as well. So this is hardware overload for all the hardware components and everything, but I do also have a gaming overload for all peripherals and monitors and gaming setups and stuff, and then also unbox overload, where I usually do the unboxings on, but just not this case. So all of the stuff usually goes there, and then it goes to the main channels, gaming overload and hardware overload. So definitely check those out with the link in the video description for a lot more content. Then moving on towards our PCI Express slots, we do have 3 of them. The top one being Generation 5, Gen 5, and the bottom 2 being Gen 3. So usually these ones are Gen 4, but now they're only Gen 3, and they're also 1x speed. So even though they're full size, they only run at 1x speed. So yeah, it's not the fastest, but it should still be enough for capture cards and some other add-on accessories as well. But just make sure about that. Thunderbolt cards or something like that won't necessarily work. But now, anyway, moving on towards our top PCI Express Gen 5 slot here. So it does feature their shield or armor design, which does support the heavier GPUs and prevent the board from bending. It does also feature ASUS's Easy Latch Plus. So if you have your GPU installed, it's going to lock it in place. And with this button, you can quickly open it up and get your GPU out. So that is a very nice addition. So now some of the other brands have already a different design, but this is still very easy and just makes your life so much simpler, where you don't need to fiddle around with a screwdriver to actually get your GPU out. So anyway, that is a very nice addition, but both of these are just standard. They don't have buttons. But I think that's okay. Then moving on towards our M.2, so we do have 3 down here. Usually you actually get one above your top PCI Express slot, but now all of them are down here, and it's so easy to get access to them. So you have your Easy Latch Plus or Latch Click here, so you just slide that to the side and can actually remove this entire heat spreader. So with most of the boards out there, you still need to unscrew it, even though some of the other, like the top slots, have a different mechanism. You still have to unscrew the bottom M.2's heat spreader. With this one, just latch it off and yeah, you're ready to go. So with that, you also have all of their other easy latches plus and stuff. So you can just pop in your M.2 here, if I can just actually get it in, and it's going to lock it in place. And again, just easy to get it out as well. And that goes for all of our M.2 slots here. So we do have that. And also these ones do go up to the extremely long 25 or 110 M.2s as well. I don't actually think I've ever seen one that long, but it does go up to that. So you do have plenty enough space. So just for specs, the top one is Gen 5 and the bottom 2 are Gen 4. And then just finally, you have your 4 SATA connectors here on the side as well. All right, so while I put this back now, just got to make sure I actually slide it in correctly. If you guys are enjoying this video so far, there we go. If you're enjoying this video so far, definitely subscribe, do the like, and do all of that jazz, because again, there's a ton of more content to come. I actually just did my unboxing of the Gigabyte B860 Gaming X Wi-Fi 6E. Now, this is a 7, this is a 6E, but it's also a bit more affordable, so this is for Intel system. So yeah, there's a ton of content still to come as well. Now, moving on towards our I/O here on this side. So we do have our integrated I/O cover. We have our DisplayPort version 1.4 4. We have a 4 USB 2 type A ports. We have a 10 gigabits per second type C ports. We have 5 USB 3.2 5 gigabits per second type A ports. We have 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 10 gigabits per second type A ports. We have a 2.5 gigabits per second, a lot of per seconds Ethernet port. We have our Wi-Fi easy plug and antenna connection for Wi-Fi 7, and we have our SPDIF out and standard audio connectors. So yeah, pretty nice set of I/O here on the side. Then moving on towards our onboard connections, we do have our 8 plus 4-pin CPU power. Just again, make sure about your CPU and if this will be enough power for that. We do have our 24-pin motherboard power, of course. We do have a 1, nothing up there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 PWM fan headers. We have a 1, 2, 3 5-volt addressable RGB headers along with a 12-volt RGB header as well. We do also have our postcode LED notifications here as well, which is always handy. Here on the side, this is something that I haven't seen on any other board yet. Probably also because I took a year-long break from making content, so I entirely missed this. So this HDMI here on the side. So this is for their sensor panel link. So you've probably seen some of this where some people like Instagram or whatever have a display inside their case where it shows like all of the temperatures and all of the stats and everything for their system. So that is where that HDMI comes in. So you can have your monitor inside your case and you don't need to route your cable all the way at the back towards your GPU. You can plug it in here. And I'm not too sure about this, I haven't checked, but I think there's like a nice software and everything that goes along with that. So it's going to make it easy to actually display all of the information. So that is here on the side, and it makes it a nice and a clean as well to actually install our HDMI. Now you do have your 20 gigs per second type of C port here as well. On the side here you have your 5 gigabits per second ports, USB ports as well. Down here my top camera died, but we can still go along with that camera. So we do have 2 USB 2 headers here as well. And then just finally for this one here, we do have our clear CMOS jumper as well. I'm not exactly too sure what this port is over here, so I'll just have to check on that one. But I think that is pretty much it for all of our connectors on the board. Alright, so that's pretty much it for my look at the B850 AORUS ELITE Wi-Fi 7 motherboard. Just always need to check just to make sure, because sometimes I say the wrong name. Because a couple of them that starts with an A. So anyway, that's pretty much it for my look at the board. A pretty nice board, I will say. Delivers everything that you would really need, especially if you want to pair it up with a decently high-end CPU, again, like the 9800X3D. Again, not too sure about the 9900X3D yet, but anything below that is going to work perfectly for this system. Looks nice, you have all of your connections, you have your HDMI as well. That's pretty niche connection, but I think that could actually be very cool. Might need to take a look at that. I/O at the back is good enough. PCIe Express Gen 3 slots here, that's okay. I think it's honestly enough. You don't really need more for a capture card or an add-on card usually. And again, not too bad price point. I think $230 or 6,000 Rand. So yeah, that's pretty much it. A big shout out to Gigabyte for sending the board over for this video. If you guys want to get it for yourself, I will leave links in the video description. Again, if you guys also want to see more content, check out the other channels as well in the description and below. Gaming Overload, Hardware Overload, Unbox Overload. So there's a ton of more content. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll check all of you next time. Cheers, guys.